I want to talk about chronic pain and other types of chronic symptoms. And I'm going to share some aspects about my own experience that might be really relatable for people. I have learned that most of the chronic conditions that I have experienced and struggled with and even suffered from have a whole other source with regard to their cause. And so for me, it was specifically things like irritable bowel syndrome and anxiety, to be specific. So many years ago, I had what would have been identified as a syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome. And there's no cure, there's treatment and management of it. But for me, it got so serious. I had lost a significant amount of weight. I could barely eat. I was in a state of fear that I never could have imagined. I was already really small, and losing 10 pounds at that time was pretty, what I would call, dangerous. And it wasn't until I went through all the steps of trying to figure it out, seeking out professional help, tons and tons of research, trying to eat healthy, identify if food was causing some or all of the problem, and then what I could eat. I went to specialists that focused on irritable bowel syndrome. I had blood work done, and it showed that I was sensitive, not allergic, but sensitive to almost every food that was tested. And I was left with, well, then what am I supposed to do? So I found my way back to someone who I already had known. He was a wonderful osteopathic physician who was really outside the box of conventional type of frameworks and belief systems. And I saw him after I'd gone through all of these steps, and he looked at me and said, so let me get this straight. You've tried all these things and nothing's helping. And I said, yes, nothing's helping. I'm just getting worse. And he said, I think it's a mind-body syndrome issue. Told me about Dr. John Sarno, and you can look him up, really phenomenal physician who is passed away now. But I came to learn that the chronic symptoms that I was dealing with, while it was real, it's not just in your head. So when we say it's a mind-body thing, it's not just in your head, but it has to do with what's going on in the brain and the perceptions and how our body is perceiving, in my situation, food to be some sort of a trigger. And it was responding. And I even said to this osteopath, I said, so, but what about my blood work? Like, is that not real? He said, oh yeah, it's all showing up. It's real, but the problem isn't the food. So he told me to read one of John Sarno's books. He said to stop all treatment, stop worrying about what I was eating. He said, eat anything that sounds good to you. And because I trusted him so much, because the first piece is we have to address the beliefs and the thoughts at that level. And I trusted him so much. And I started to read John Sarno's work. And then I found other people who had expanded on John Sarno's work. And I really started getting connected with what I was feeling. Because John Sarno didn't, if I remember correctly, John Sarno didn't believe we had to go and explore all of our feelings. And I'm not saying that we need to either. I don't know what's right for anyone else. I just know my experience. But I started to really allow my feelings to be there, like the fear, the anxiety, and the worry. But when you stop believing that you have to keep searching to fix a problem, it's just amazing how fast things can shift, because then I believe there's nothing actually wrong with me. That I was just having whatever this mind-body syndrome stuff was. I was just in a fear panic mode. And that fear was causing all of the stuff in my body. And my brain was initiating it. And there's some really cool teachings of different people. Nicole Sachs is a really helpful resource. She has a podcast and a website and courses and different things. And there's other people too, that when you start getting connected with what's going on and dealing with the fear, if we believe something's wrong and we got to fix it, or we are in mortal danger, it's really hard to heal. It's really, really hard to help the body and mind come back into harmony. And it can be really challenging to sort of surrender, so to speak, to the part of us, help the part of us actually that's driving all of that, well, I got to fix it and I'm in danger and all these things, to surrender and let go. And what I later figured out, and now am much more resonating with, is that I have a higher self. I have a higher consciousness, true self, intuition, soul, spirit, whatever we want to call it, that has all the answers and all the wisdom. It's not attached to the physical experience, but it is here to guide us in relation to it. And we have parts that want to be seen and heard. And so whatever parts of me that were driving that response, causing all of those symptoms in my body, they wanted love and attention. And now I can give that to them, and I'm not caught up in fear. I'll still get some bouts of symptoms. It'll go away for months. That's how I know that it's, because there's a whole piece about how do we know that. So Dr. Sarno coined a term, tension myositis syndrome. You can also call it mind-body syndrome. There's different terms. And how do we know that that's what's going on? And different folks have some different assessments. And when you start to read and learn, there's certain personality characteristics even that a lot of us that struggle with chronic unresolved symptoms and pain have. And like perfectionism, we're hard on ourselves. We never feel good enough. We're people pleasers. Like all of these kind of qualities, it's really, really interesting. And just notice what it feels like for you. And if this is new for you, or if this is just validating maybe some of the research that's already coming forward for you related to your journey, because there's other chronic, like there's someone named Kim Diarmo, and she is another wonderful resource for mind-body connected sorts of symptoms and struggles. And she talks about autoimmune disorders and all kinds of different long-term chronic conditions that she healed in herself. And it also includes anxiety. And anxiety is a really big one for a lot of people. And I see this in my practice working with people, that it's like anxiety is something to fix, and it's a condition that we are stuck with and we're born with probably. And because it runs in our family, we're always going to be dealing with it. But I now have a new perspective on anxiety, and there are really helpful people in the more mind-body syndrome area that name anxiety as one of those pieces of TMS. Insomnia can be TMS. And it's just the mind's way of having us focus on a symptom instead of focusing on emotions, feelings that are too scary, too vulnerable to be with. And that's related to parts of us. But the truth is, it's not dangerous. Our feelings aren't dangerous, but our mind doesn't know that. And it's so fascinating how powerful it is. And it can be so tucked away and compartmentalized that it's out of our awareness. So if you relate to what I'm sharing, and you've been like chasing and searching and seeking, and you're feeling frustrated and scared and exhausted, and something sparks, in this conversation that I'm sharing with you, then follow the nudges, follow your curiosity. And as you start listening, there's so many tools. Nicole Sachs talks about journal speak. You can journal and be with your parts. There's EFT tapping. I like to do EFT tapping sometimes when I've got parts showing up, and I'll just start tapping, and before I know it, like the energy starts moving and I'll feel some feelings. The whole point is to feel. And sometimes we really need a guide. If we get really overwhelmed, and if you experience any kind of self-harming or suicidal thoughts, things like that, then it's really ideal to work with a mental health practitioner, someone who can guide you and be with you and help you take as much as possible baby steps. But overall, our feelings are nothing to be afraid of. But we often just don't feel like we can tolerate it, and we want to avoid and hide from it. And then what happens is often we're just going to have a lot of physical stuff going on in the body. And we might even feel like, well, I don't know why I would be having all these symptoms, because I don't have repressed, or suppressed feelings. And it's really surprising that it is actually there, and that we're not as in touch maybe as we believe we are. And just the concept of self-love, our self-concept. And so the part that's running, or parts that runs most of our day, we might feel like, oh, I've got it pretty together and I'm really okay. I can speak personally that I have become aware that I thought that, and I'm really not. Like when I lay down at night to go to bed, and then all of a sudden there's fear in my body. Wow. Well, there's a part of me that's feeling fear. And if I'm busy all day and I'm never tuning in and I never get quiet and I don't even sense my true, like, higher self essence, then I'm probably feeling pretty alone. And then I'm looking outside of myself for comfort and answers. And then I'm chasing and searching. And then even if I find an answer, a solution, I don't even, I didn't used to check in with the discernment about, like, well, how does this resonate for me? And how might I apply this? But we just have this knowing. And I just knew when I met with that osteopath, I'm like, I know I can trust him. I know that I'm on the right path. And by the way, within about 3 weeks, because I had lost 10 pounds. I had weighed 108 pounds and I lost 10. And so I weighed under 100 pounds. That was super scary. I just had no weight to lose. And within about 3 weeks of just addressing the fear, not worrying about what I was eating, no more research, just ate what I felt like was right for me at each moment. And I started gaining weight back. It was really, really amazing. It was so eye-opening. And part of what helped me was also hearing people share stories, kind of like I'm sharing here with you. So if you want to comment and reach out with questions, in my work with people, while I'm literally being with them as a therapist and a spiritual type coach to help them connect with that higher self and honor all the parts of us, often what does come in are physical symptoms, and they connect with all of our emotions and the parts of us. So it's all relevant. So I'm very holistic in my approach. And I invite you into a journey with me if this calls to you. And I hope this has been helpful for you. Thanks so much.